You got your license, now what? Obviously some of you here are going to be taking the test prep class next, but today we are going to be talking about how to use communication to build a big business in real estate. As I mentioned a couple minutes ago before we started the recording, it was only in the last 4 or 5 years that I realized how critical communication was, and asking the right questions and building rapport with people was to actually effectively helping people buy and sell homes. You know, buying, I like to say that it's 80%, this business is 80% about the people and 20% about the building or the process. Anything that you need to know about how to buy and sell, we can help you with that. What we can't do for you is go on every appointment or go on every door knocking excursion or be on every phone call with you when you're talking to your potential prospects or your sphere of influence to talk about whether they want to buy or sell. And sometimes it takes, and this is Charissa, by the way, I'll introduce her and myself in just a second, but would you agree that sometimes it's a little verbal jujitsu to get them to answer or navigate into a yes?
Absolutely.
Yes. So, yeah, so I'm Stacy Sanseverino. I'm one of the people on the ALC, the Associate Leadership Council here at KW Philly, and Charissa is one of my partners. She actually came to KW Philly after interviewing with a couple of brokers, right?
Yeah,
and then we worked very closely together for 2 years, I guess.
Yeah.
So Communication 101. So I labeled my section Communication 101, 201, and beyond, because I really think it's not really the basics. All too often, the classes are going to be on how, you know, I mean, and they're great classes, like how to get clients with social media, how to write a contract, how to da-da-da. But if you don't know how to talk to people in the context of them potentially buying or selling, nothing else matters. And then Charissa has these amazing 5 rapport building questions. I was totally blown away when I saw them. And then in the slide packet, we probably won't have time for it, but I do have videos on stacylovesrealestate.com that help you model your way to $100,000 in income if you're a full-time agent. Any questions? Is everybody here in the right room? We're all flying to Philly together? Okay. Okay. So get out your pens and draw a line between the percentages that you see on the left and the ways we communicate on the right. So 7%, 38%, and 55%. What percentage represents what mode of communication? We've got, and we're totally on the handout. Oh. Tonality, body language, and words. There you go. And if you haven't signed in, if you could pass the sign-in sheet around, please. And Jesse, since we know you're already here, you can just sign your first name and just pass it around.
I gave you my number.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. All right. So, who thinks that tonality is 7%? Did you have a question?
No, I was going to answer.
Okay. Who thinks tonality is 7%? Well, we got one person. Who thinks body language is 7%? Okay. Who thinks words are 7%? Nice, good job. So the words that we say, with which we say things, is only 7% of communication. Consider this: have you ever gotten in a fight over email or text because you had a great misunderstanding because of the way you said something? Maybe there was no punctuation, right? Maybe you used all caps, you didn't mean it, you thought you were screaming, or you know,
emojis.
Or what?
No emojis.
Yeah, no emojis.
God forbid.
Okay. So, well, okay, so 38%, what do we think 38% represents? Yes, Jesse?
That's
Yes, that is tonality. And body language obviously is 55%. So you don't have to tell us if we got them all right or wrong. It sounds like most of you understand 7% words. But what do emojis take the place of when you're communicating electronically? Yeah, I mean, I think body language or maybe tonality, like, yeah, it's giving you emotional cues as to how to interpret the words that you're using. So yeah, so there's a great sentence that's, or how about this one? Time to eat, comma, grandma. Or time to eat, grandma. Missing a comma. One, grandma's gonna be dinner. The other one is dinner for grandma. Or I didn't say that she took that. I didn't say that she took that. I didn't say she took that. I didn't say that she took that. Like, think about all the different meanings just by the word I'm emphasizing. So when you are with people, have you ever noticed, okay, so has anybody here ever studied abroad or has family in a different part of the country where they have a slight accent? Yeah, whereas abroad or slight accent?
No, slight accent.
Okay, where?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. So if you spend any time there, do you start to sound like them?
My parents do. They lost their accent, but when they go back,
Yeah.
they start to sound like that again.
Totally. So when I visit my sister in Minnesota, I didn't grow up there. We grew up in New York. But when I go there, I start to say things like, oh, you know, and then I'm like, oh, you betcha. I don't say that, but I say, oh, you know, like, oh, and she's like, don't do that. Like, I'm in the grocery line. This is one specific instance. I'm like, I'm not doing it on purpose. You start to adapt to people, or have you ever used phrases that your friends start to use? You're like, I've never said that before I met you, and now I say it all the time. Right? So, you know, it's like birds of a feather flock together. You start to sound like your friends, or you go away. Or I had a cousin who's from Jersey. She moved to England for a study abroad. She came back sounding British, and she hasn't lost it. We're like, come on, you're Jersey. You're not British. But she's got this very elegant accent. So, you know, so you want to do that. Like you as a salesperson are going to be the chameleon, because it's going to make people feel comfortable. It's not, you know, manipulative or anything like that. It's just, they just feel at home, right? Is anybody here like from Philly originally? Yeah. What do we call the thing below the first floor? Or what do maybe older people call it? I don't know. Maybe you call it. I don't know. What do you say? Okay. Does anybody know the alternative word that a lot of like? Cellar. Yeah. So if you're in a listening appointment in deep South Philly, you're going to call it a cellar, because that's what the little lady who's selling the property probably calls it. What else? There's another one I feel like. Oh, what are those like little fluffy things that go wall to wall? Yeah, what's the other word for it? Rugs. Yeah.
Just comment.
Right, but I'm not talking about an area rug.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like wall to wall. Like I always grew up just calling carpet. You know, there's an area rug where I came from and a carpet that's wall to wall. But wherever I go, it's rugs. Yeah, it's rugs. So you want to start, you know, hearing how people are saying things and the words that they're using, and just mirror it back to them. And if somebody talks a little slower or softer, you probably don't want to come in like this, right? So anybody here originally from the South? Okay. Anybody here a Yankee like me? Anybody from the West Coast? No, where are you all from? Right here.
Yeah, Bucks County.
Bucks County. Okay, so, you know, when you hear somebody talking really fast, like, what might somebody be thinking if they are a slow talker? And what was that? And what might come into your head? Like, what connotations might you be thinking about this person?
The feeling you get at the end of a prescription commercial where they're like rushing right through it, and you feel like you're getting something that's not right. Yeah.
Trying to get something over on you? Exactly. So the common, you know, idea is that if you're from the South, I'm just going to use this as an example, and you hear a fast-talking New Yorker, you're going to think that they're up to something and that they're no good and you can't trust them. And then in the reverse, you hear somebody from the South and you think they might be what? Slut. Yeah. So, and are any of these things absolutely true? No. It's just the way people talk. That's why I recommend C-SPAN, because then you get to hear Congress people from across the country and all their beautiful accents and how smart everybody is. Anyway. So yeah, so you just want to understand, listen to how people are approaching you, and just know as a salesperson, it's your job to make them feel comfortable. And that was an embedded command, which is another subtle thing that you can use in language. So, you know, you're not going to learn everything tonight, but I just wanted to alert you to certain things that, you know, when you join KW Philly, you're going to learn all these things. And that was another example. Can anybody pick up on the two things that I just did in my speech? Yeah. So I'm assuming that you're going to join KW Philly. And did anybody hear the other thing that I said before it? I said you want them to make them feel comfortable. So that is an embedded command. So there's lots of just nuances about language. So today I just wanted to alert you to that, as you can see, it might take years and years of attention and practice. And someday, it's kind of like when we go to bowl. We have a program called bowl. It's a subject of a life by design. And doesn't it feel like How many times did you take it? One or two? Two.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself in conversation saying something you're like, where did that come from?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So this is not a skill like, oh, I'm going to learn how to do a buyer closing cost estimate, and now I got that skill. This is something, it's like eating and dieting. Can you just lose weight by just eating one meal and then you lost all the weight you wanted to lose? No, right? So it's not like just learning a skill, or it's like more like dieting. You got to do it every day, day after day, and work on it. And then one day, and sometimes you don't even feel like you've been working on it, but you have, and suddenly you realize you learned something and you're incorporating it into your day-to-day. So there are two books that I absolutely adore that I always recommend. The Friendship Formula on your bottom part of your handout. It's from this book. They're both of them by ex-FBI agents. So this one's by Jack Schaefer, and it's basically influencing people and building relationships. So he used to convert spies to be counter spies. So that unto itself is cool. And then he talks about the friendship formula, which includes proximity, duration, intensity, and frequency. So if you want to think about having the right mix for any good relationship. So for example, proximity, and they often counterbalance each other. So if, let's say you have a friend that you went to school with and you haven't seen them in a long time, how much time might you spend when they come to visit? A lot. So there, if you don't live close to somebody, or actually no, I think that's a different example. Okay, so I have friends that live 2.5 miles away. When I lived near them, I saw them way more often than when I lived 2.5 miles away. Does anybody have that experience in Philly? It's like, I don't want to go up Delaware Avenue to visit you. Or I don't want to cross Broad or Market. Like, it just seems so far. But so the closer you are to the closer you are physically, you might see them more. But if you are farther, you might see them for longer periods of time when you do see them, right? Duration, so that's the more of the example of a friend you haven't seen in a while. Maybe they come for a weekend, and you spend 48 hours together. You haven't seen them in a year. Now here's one, intensity. This is an example from the book. If you or your spouse or partner, all you do, you see each other every day, you live together, and you have the proximity, duration, and frequency, but you don't have that intensity. How good a relationship is that? You're watching TV together, not talking.
Not that great.
Not that great. So there's no spark. Like there's no spark. So you gotta have some intensity. And then of course frequency. So does anybody here talk to a spouse or loved one every day, or have somebody they text every day? Yeah. So anybody do a phone call a lot with somebody? I mean, I put you on the spot. Is it your mom? No. Is it your dad?
My daughter.
Your daughter. So are these conversations like hour-long conversations, or like 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a time?
No. So Rob, so me and my daughter aren't together. So
You what?
Aren't together. So
Right.
I make sure I'm on the phone call her when I don't have her.
Yeah.
So every day.
Yeah. But is it like an hour long every time? 30 minutes.
And she's 4.5.
Okay.
Sounds young, but my goal, I just started reading books about it.
Yeah.
And so I talked to her like she's not in those conversations.
Nice.
So it's really cool.
Nice. Maybe you'll teach her about the friendship formula.
Yeah. But as I do more, she gets better and more like okay with it and talk longer, attention spans better.
That's amazing. I mean, and that kind of speaks to one of the 5 jobs of a realtor, which is role play and script practice. You would practice in here with your fellow realtors rather than practicing out there on your potential clients. And so it feels awkward and messy, and sometimes, like you say, the dumbest thing, but it's okay, you're in here. And the more you do it, the more fun it is. Has anybody ever done improv? Yeah? Yes. Did you enjoy it? Yeah. Did you take classes? Like,
Classes. They try out.
yeah. Well, improv is one of the best kinds of classes you can take to become a better salesperson, because you're forced to respond to the last thing that person said and build on it. Not to argue with them, but to build on it. Okay. So, all right. Next page. Get them to say, This is the book from Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, also an ex-FBI agent. So he, his main thing is he was a crisis, hostage, well, it's always a crisis, right? A hostage negotiator. So he was constantly negotiating in these intense situations. And if I'm your roommate and I say, hey, I have to get to work, can you do the dishes? What do you really want to say? No. But if what was your name, sir, in the corner from upstairs? Gerard. If I said to you, hey, I have to get to work, would it be a terrible imposition if I could ask you to just do the dishes for me today?
I can do it.
Right. So you might have said, no, it's not a terrible imposition. And then ultimately, what did he tell me? Yes. He told me yes, essentially. So when somebody asks you to do something on your schedule and you're feeling really busy, your first, come on in, grab a handout. We're on page 2 at the top. So do you mind just moving? Yeah. So, so saying no feels protective to yourself. So the beginning of any negotiations can and does start with a no, according to Chris Voss. So you can word your question such that, first of all, I use the word terrible imposition. It's like, come on, dude, no, it's not a terrible imposition, right? Like, so it's not like I'm lowering your expectations. Like, would it be a terrible imposition? You're thinking, I want to borrow your car, or, I want you to move out for a week so I can have somebody stay in your place, whatever. That would be a terrible imposition, right? Doing the dishes would not be a terrible imposition. So by getting you to say no and framing it in such a way that it's, oh, no, I can do the dishes, I'm getting you to say yes. Can you think of anything that you asked somebody recently to do? I'd like you to come up with an example for yourself and how you could rephrase it. Like, I'm gonna just give you another one just to jog your. Allison, do you have one? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I have a puppy,
Yeah.
so I'm here tonight. I had to get my neighbor, the puppy. So I was like, no, actually, my puppy, like, children, or whatever, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I need a puppy, like, pretty much that's it. But
So you were using bribery.
yeah, that
So
was
you were
bribery.
definitely using negotiation, sort of top of page 2. You were definitely negotiating there. So what would be a way, if you didn't have anything to give this person, what might you say?
Get this puppy to make me so happy, like, smile, and make your day, make everybody's day, that kind of thing.
All right, well, a puppy might not be a great example because you want them to say no. How about this? You don't want to spend time with my puppy tonight, do you? No, I do. Wait, is that a correct way of saying it?
That's yes.
Yeah.
Watch that YouTube video.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to watch it. Am I saying that right? Yeah. Right.
So the no is like not a problem, so it's, you're starting with a no,
You're asking a negative question.
Yeah, I wanted to say no, but that's
You wouldn't want to get ice cream later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, no, it's the same
Yeah.
question.
Or here's the example that I was just thinking in my head. If you were wanting a raise from your boss, you're like, hey, can I have a raise? Or it's like, would it be unreasonable to ask that I get a raise? And you're like, no, it's not unreasonable. Let's have a conversation about that. That's the start of the conversation. What examples have you guys come up with in your head? Not using something that somebody would want to do. Because the puppy is kind of throwing a wrench in it for me. That's okay. Yeah, true.
I had a coworker cover a hearing for me this morning, and she was already going to court. It's not really difficult to get her to do it, because she knows that when I'm going to court, I'll take her to it.
Right.
But I just kind of walked in and I said, I see you're already going to court, would you mind taking my motion?
Right, exactly. Exactly. So sometimes people will call, and has anybody said this to you, like, do you have a minute? And you're asking them to say yes, but if you wanted them to say no, which feels better to them internally, what could you say? You get it out.
I know, it's my favorite.
Has anybody said it to you in the negative to you? Is now yeah, it's now a bad time. And we think, oh, it's negative because you said bad, but not necessarily. No, now's not a bad time. First of all, my first rule of thumb is do not answer the phone if it's a bad time, okay? Stop. It drives me crazy. People get mad at me for picking up the phone when I call. You have control of your phone. I did not make you pick it up. Okay, the next thing, objections versus conditions. Let's see how we're on time. All right, so an objection and a condition are two separate things. Without cheating, who thinks they know the difference? Jesse.
An objection would be, I need to talk to my wife about it. A condition would be like, my credit score isn't high enough, I can't buy this.
Yeah, yeah,
You
exactly.
can't move past the condition.
Right.
Objection is something you can't do.
Right, and an objection is an unanswered question or a deflection. So I had to talk to my wife about it. It's kind of like, I'm putting you off using that as an excuse. Whereas the condition is, well, I legitimately cannot get a mortgage because my credit score is not where it needs to be. There could be one that might be a hybrid, or you won't know what it is until you actually ask. Hey, Arlie, you want to just pull the chair right at the end of the day? I think it'll be. And then, yeah. So as I was putting these together, and I'd like you to all, write down next to each one of these what you think it is. But some might be, you need to know more information to know which is which. So take a moment and look down and write O or C next to each one, what you think it is. And then if you think it could be either, so who would like to volunteer what they think number one is? Doesn't want to pay a commission. So a lot of for sale by owners don't want to pay a commission. That's right. And why is that an objection? Yeah, I mean, they.
Is this something? Yes.
Yeah, they could pay a commission. They just maybe, well, I won't get into it. Yeah. Number two, who would like to tell me what they think that one is? Yes.
I think that, condition.
Yeah,
It has to happen.
yeah, exactly. Number three, who'd like to volunteer?
I think it's an objection.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these are common responses that you'll get when you talk to a for sale by owner or a listing that had expired, and they just want to push you off, Number four, who would like to volunteer for number four? Yes.
Objection.
So,
I would say both. Well, I would go with both. They don't have the money to buy it, they need more money to buy it. Condition.
what
But
they mean?
depends on, well, look, you don't need this much money to buy it.
Right.
Down payment on this house.
I would think anything you would want would be an objection. Really? Anything
Yeah.
that's a want.
Yeah.
Whether you convince something to somebody else.
Right, so I would, yeah, if we take it at face value, like they're probably one or the other, but this is one where it's like wants to save money to buy. Well, that was like to me an either or situation where you need to ask more questions. And that'll get into the objection handling formula to tease that out. Number five, so good call on you guys. Number five, we'd like to volunteer for that. I can see you already answered one. Let the person who's looking down the lowest answer. I will call it. Yes. What'd you say? Wants to save money on the sale of their home. So tell me why. Like,
I actually read it wrong. You read it out loud.
Oh. So what do you think it is now? Yeah, objection. Number 6, who'd like to volunteer? Yes. Yes, a condition. You know, I mean, anybody can say anything and be lying to you, but just on face value, you know, most of these are one or the other. Number 7, who'd like to take a stab? Yeah.
For both.
Okay, tell me more.
Because I wouldn't necessarily fall under the condition category when it's not an event that they're waiting for to happen until they make a decision. This is kind of them saying like, this is my decision for now, so I put it more towards an objection. But it is like a definitive statement where they're kind of telling you go away, period.
So did you say either or did you say objection?
I said both, yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah, it's not always so straightforward. It's definitely one of the objections we hear in when we talk about expired listings. Oh, we've decided to stay. Well, okay, well, what was your goal? Or our goal was X, Y, Z. Well, it turns out usually it's that they couldn't get enough money to make that happen. But if they made a sacrifice somewhere or looked at alternatives, they could potentially make something to what they're going for happen. They're just stuck on not getting what they want for their house. So when we see it in practice, it's usually an objection, and yet I could totally see the C part of it, where there could be a reason, and it's always good to ask the follow-up question to figure it out, because we never want to assume anything. So if I said I want to move ASAP, what did you guys just think in your head? I didn't mean literally. So, you know, that I could be like ASAP, 30 days. ASAP could be 3 months from now. You know, what does ASAP mean to you? So you never take words for granted. Okay, and then 8, who'd like to take that one?
I'm going to say objection, because going back to number 7, I think that's unanswered. Why do they want central air? It's not in need at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I happen to put both, just because, like, let's say you have somebody who, like, they don't have the money to install it, but this is one of the questions, you know, when you have a buyer consult before you go looking for properties, you want to find out, oh, you want central air. What's important about central air to you? You know, and then they might say, well, I have an elderly family member that needs air conditioning, and I don't want to deal with the units, the window units, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that for them could be a condition. They just can't do it, and they really absolutely need it. Or the objection, like when you're out in the field, well, this is a beautiful house, and it needs everything else, but I really want central air. You know, it's like, that could be just an objection because they might not be emotionally ready to make that plunge, you know, so I think like asking the deeper questions. And honestly, like, none of you would be wrong for writing anything here because I just like put that together. Any questions so far? Like I'm just trying to give you a taste of all of these like different ways of approaching communication. Any questions? Does this feel familiar, or does this feel new, or? Yeah. Well, guess what? You communicate every day.
The no first to me is kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
Like, I was always taught in sales, like, get them to say 3 yeses
Right,
in a row,
right.
and the fourth thing they say is going to be yes.
Right,
So,
right,
that's,
right,
I mean, I
right,
guess I
right.
understand it, but
Yeah.
it's strange.
So I was working on a script with an agent here in the office who works with a lot of renters because he was in leasing. He's in leasing like in the springtime and in the sales in the rest of the year. And so he came up with a script. It's like, well, you don't want to be a renter forever, do you? No. You know, you want to, so logic makes you think, emotion makes you act. So you want to elicit emotion. So it's like, if I ask you, do you want to buy a home? And you're this renter and you don't think that it's a thing that you need to be doing, or you're not even considering it, you're not going to have an emotional response to the yes, but you don't want to rent forever, do you?
No.
No. Thank you. I'll think
Cool.
that's what you.
Cash out?
The cash out. Yeah, the cash out. We don't use the other app. Okay. That's a great one. Okay. So the objection handling formula. So one of our great KW trainers taught me parts 2, 3, 4, and 5, but I added part number 1 just because of this determining between objection and condition. And until you really know what's important about their quote-unquote objection, you don't know if it's really, an objection. So, I mean, for example, like, the kid needs to graduate. This is why I say none of you is wrong for any of these, because if you say, oh, my kid needs to graduate, and you learn that they're moving in the same school district, like, maybe it's not such a big deal. And maybe they're just trying to postpone it for whatever other reason. So this one's in response to, like, you might find a buyer call on a sign, and, basically one of your listings, and they want to talk to you through the listing agent, and you realize that their property, like their price range is $100,000 less. So you're offering to meet with them to have a buyer consult or buyer strategy session, the word I like to use. And they're like, well, I like to go to the listing agent, and so you want to ask, well, what's important about going to the listing agent for you? What does that do for you? And a lot of the times, what do you think they think if they go to the listing agent? Is that save money? Yeah, by how? Who said that? There's a voice. Yeah, how are they going to save money if they go to the listing agent?
So like the cap commission at 5%, I guess, you pay the listing agent. You could pay up to 6% if you have the listing and buyer's agent involved.
Yeah, so, we have to say all commissions are negotiable. And the seller has agreed to pay the listing agent 5, 6, 7%, regardless of whether there's another agent involved. So that listing agent already is entitled to the whole thing, even if that buyer does not bring their own agent with them. So it really doesn't, just because you go to the listing agent doesn't mean they're going to cut a commission to give you a better deal. And the duties that you owe to a consumer of real estate differ based on whether or not you represent the seller, the buyer, or both in the same transaction. And instead of advocating for each of your client, if you're on the buyer side or the seller side, you now can do no harm, essentially, to either party. So does that sound like you're going to get the best deal possible when you're doing no harm versus advocating? You sound like you're in the legal profession. Are you a lawyer right now? An unhappy lawyer? Most are, it's okay. So, yeah, so now you're not advocating on behalf for. So, for example, it's a very tricky situation. I have a new construction duplex. I'm talking to my other clients about buying one of the condos, and there's water in the basement. I'm like, number 1, it's a condo. Number 2, it's new construction. I always want you to have an attorney for those things. And then number 3, like, I can't protect you and write the legal language such that you can get an inspection, make sure the water is taken care of in an appropriate manner. So it is a very fine line for me, to be making recommendations to this one client, potentially at the expense of this other client. But in no uncertain terms, no client wants water in the basement. So, but in a resale example where, you have an old, South Philly row home, and you've got 100-year cast iron pipes under the, from the sewer to the street. Most agents don't recommend a video sewer scope, whereas I always do. And a lot of the agents in this office do recommend that. So if it's not a common practice for people to recommend it, yet now I have a dual agency situation, I feel a little weird recommending it to my buyer client when, I do it as a normal practice, but my seller client could say, well, that's not common practice. And now you're telling them to do something. So back to the example, if I'm a dual agent and I just met you, as in this person is calling all the seller's agents, and I just met you, well, you know what? I might not recommend that sewer line video just because we didn't have a prior relationship where there's been trust on both sides. So I would want to know what's important to you about that. And then you want to agree with them. Oh, I can see why. Yeah, you want to save money. That makes sense. It's yes anding them. It's improv, right? So you're yes anding. You're saying, yes, I can see why you want to save money. That makes sense. Because nobody likes to look wrong. Everybody likes to look good and do right. And then you can offer to share from experience. Can I share with you, and then I can share a story. So knowing that this buyer on the phone won't buy the property that I have listed, I was like, can I share with you what happened to, or what could happen, what concerns me for you, is that you might actually not get the best deal because, and I can explain how nobody's your advocate, now they can't do farm, they might not cut the commission for you. And they might not recommend all the things that you can do in the transaction. Like if you call a listing agent for new construction, they're not gonna recommend you get an attorney to review the documents for you. You know, they're not gonna recommend the court inspections that I recommend to my clients. Well, look at that, we have to come in and see. We'll talk about it. And then you want to offer alternatives. So would you like to, you know, limit your risk and save thousands, or take a chance that you might get a better deal by going to this, you know, the listing agent. And then lastly, a call to action. That's why it's important to have your own advocate, like me, to help you get what you want. So can you think, let's check on the time. Oh, 6:39. So can you think about in your life a disagreement you had with somebody? I won't ask you to share, but in your head, where if you had asked, you know, what's important to you about that, or tell me more about that, or what do you mean by that, or things could have gone in a different direction. I would say as an example. So your assignment is to take this home with you and listen for opportunities where somebody says something, you're like, I want to see my way around this. I'll give you an example from my personal life, and then if anybody else has an example they'd like to share. So I was trying to plan, I'm going away at the end of August with my family, and my boyfriend travels for work, and he can pretty much go anywhere because wherever he works with different salvage yards. And so he has salvage yards in Rhode Island, New York, where all over the place. So I was like, can you come this weekend? And he's like, no, I can't come that weekend. I was like, well, what about coming, this is actually not a great example, but offering alternatives, well, what about always looking for the way to make it happen, right? What about during the week? Could that work for you? What if you scheduled a trip? So that was very simple. But can anybody think of an example where they could use this, even if it's a hypothetical in your head? Yeah. Yeah, yep.
Oh, is it a more, how about,
Yeah. Yeah. So I want you guys to think you just have a personal situation, because the more you can start using this in your personal life, the more it will naturally easily translate into your business life. So even going out to dinner, so somebody's like, hey, you want to, what's your favorite restaurant? Del Frisco's. Okay. So you tell me, so it's like, hey, let's go out to dinner. What's your name? Tyrell. Is it Tyrell? Let's go out to dinner. And we say, yeah, let's go to Del Frisco's.
Let's go to Del Frisco's.
My treat. Great. So I might say, maybe I don't want to go to Del Frisco's. Either I become a vegetarian and I know they're mostly meat options, or maybe the location sucks. So I'm like, what about Del Frisco's is the steak is bomb. Okay, so now I know it's because you must go for the steak. Let's say my issue is the budget or something, or it could be anything. I'd be like, you know what? I know this amazing, South Philly dive that has amazing steak. I'll go there and check it out. Yeah, so understanding what is motivating that person to give you that answer, rather than just immediately throwing out your thing. Because if, let's say, it was close to where his appointment was, or his work was, and we're meeting at 5:30, he might say, I'm getting out of work at 5, and that's where I can get by our time. And I might say, oh, well, you know what? Down the street is this really great pub that has amazing burgers. You want to check that out? Anybody think of an example? All right, you're going to start looking for opportunities, I can just tell. So I am going to give, we're not going to get into the positive present, positive future until Sharissa has talked a little while, because I've been talking too much. This is in your handout if you have the slides in front of you. But if you want to do your thing, it's 6:42. We're good on time. Yeah.
All right, hi guys, I'm Sharissa. Hello. I recognize a couple faces, but yeah, so I'm just a lot of real estate is rapport building, right? A lot of times your clients are going to feel comfortable working with you because they feel like they know you. So what are the ways that you can engage your clients or engage the people that you're working with to, just learn who you are and learn who they are, engage with them. So a lot of times these conversations for me happen at like open houses or just on the street. Maybe we're going somewhere or together or we just met. One of my favorites is, you seem like you're in a good mood. What's your secret? So this is a great one for an open house, by the way. If someone comes in and they're trying to avoid you, my favorite. And they're like, oh, I just want to see the house. And I'm like, oh, you're in a good mood. What's your secret? And then they're already off their, I don't want to talk with you game, They're like, oh, I'm in a good mood. Do I look happy? You know what I mean? So it's
I thought I was avoiding you.
Exactly. It's a great way to get people engaged and start them going. So that's number one of my 5 favorite rapport building questions. The second one is, so where are you headed after this? I use this all the time. After showings, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go home and write this offer. What are you doing after this? Are you gonna go grab a bite? Are you hungry? That's an opportunity to talk about the restaurants that are in the area. That's an opportunity to talk about what they like to eat. So that, at the closing, you can give them a nice little gift certificate to whatever they like to eat. Where you headed after this also gives you a chance to know what they do for fun. So again, these are all things that engage you and build stronger relationships with your client. Because as we mentioned earlier, as Stacey mentioned, it's so much less about the house and so much more about the person. So as salespeople, I think a lot of people, we're taught to get the deal done, get signatures, get money, get whatever. But it's also about people. People buy from people. You have to find a way to communicate what's different about you to your clients. So where you're headed after this, now you're a person. Where you headed after this, right? So that's one of my favorites. Another one, I know this is random, but what's the last show you binged watched? I just finished binging, I don't know, 90 Day Fiancé.
Oh, I watched that.
The best. By the way, that's great. Again, engaging your client, making them realize that you're like a real person, and then also gives them a chance to tell you a little bit about them and what they do in their spare time, which could actually help you find more, appropriate homes or, part of your searching process. You can think about, what is this person doing with their time in the evening? Who are they watching TV with? What are they interested in? Those sorts of things. And then 4, do you live around here? I'm looking for a good, this is a great one at an open house too. They come in, they're not actually looking to buy at the time. You want to get them to tell you stuff about the neighborhood so that you can share with other people that walk in. Or, maybe they want to recommend you to someone else. This is a way to engage them and get them talking to you, understanding who you are. People love to give or share their feelings. They love to tell other people about things they enjoy. They love to give insider tips. Who doesn't love to tell someone, those shoes were only $20 at so-and-so, or they're giving away free ice cream at such and such. Who doesn't love to share that with other people or receive that sort of information? So great way to get people talking and engage with them. And then finally, did you get, this is kind of a weird one, but did you get your shirt, pants, bag, whatever from Brooks Brothers? They'll either correct you or they'll say yes. Either way, you have an opportunity to engage and continue the conversation and build on that from there. So those were my 5 rapport building questions. Does anybody have any that they'd like to share? Really not rapport building, it's like totally sales. I don't.
You blurted it out.
Yes. I mean, communication and rapport building sort of go hand in hand. So yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Something like that, so you know, like, what angle to play, when to respond.
Yeah, exactly. If they saw your signs, then they're probably living in the neighborhood. You can ask them, what's the best place to get coffee around here? I don't live around here. Where's the good bagels or, whatever. So yeah, that's a good one. Any others?
I always like
Sarah?
to ask people where you're from. If you're not from Philly, you can tell them everything about Philly.
Exactly.
And if they are from Philly, share like where you like to shop or,
Exactly. And then you're also adding value. In addition to proving yourself a real person, you're adding value because, if they're not from around here, you can say, well, don't go here or definitely go there. That's adding value. People love getting things for free and love people who are willing to share with them. So yeah, those are fun. Anybody else? You guys are doing great. You have one? Oh, you're going to say that one.
I love identifying people's phone numbers, like somebody's calling me, I'm like, oh, 914, that's my home, like that's where I'm from, where are you, Yeah, actually, it's funny because I was texting back and forth with this guy who's from New York, and we were just like about work stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, us New Yorkers, blah, 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 because we're fun and straight up, like we'll tell you what we're thinking, so just being straight up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, so this whole course or this class, I guess, is about communication. So when you're taking, there's a lot of hard data here that we're going to give to you, or that Stacey's sort of prepared. Don't forget to add in the human element. It's so important. I know everybody thinks that, Zillow can do our jobs, but the fact is, Zillow can do our jobs. But the fact is there's no replacement for human connection. There literally isn't. So why not enjoy, engaging with people? You're probably a people person anyway if you're thinking about being a realtor. So just build that in. Build that into your, your communication, build it into your sales pipeline, and it'll make your job so much more enjoyable, and then also endear your clients to you in a much, much quicker, much, faster.
Yeah. But there's, why do you think people use anybody for real estate sales? Don't you answer the question. Like, what do they have to,
If no clue was involved in the transaction,
and how do they have to feel about you?
are we like a step above car salesman? Is that?
They have to trust you.
Oh.
I'm
They
a
have to
car
trust you.
salesman.
I
I'm a lawyer, I mean.
know, right?
Well, no, I think salespeople get a really bad rap because we're not doing what we are fundamentally meant to do, which is uncover your problem and fit the solution to match your problem and solve it. A lot of the times, like when you're hosting an open house, which is back to your question, I believe, how do you find new clients? The person is not likely to buy the house that you're hosting open. They're much more likely to buy something else. 99% of the time, they're going to buy something else. And that's a stat, So, when you come from contribution, you're like, hey, what's the most important thing about a house that you buy? Oh, this house doesn't have that. You can check it out. But now I saved you time if you didn't want to have to check it out, and I showed that I'm not here to sell you this house, and I made it more about you than this house. So a lot of the time, that's why I say communication is so critical, because all too often we're just focusing on the house. What do I do? What do I got to do to sell this house? What do I got to do to help you buy a house? It's more, how do I help you get from here to here, and the house is in the way? On the way or in the way? We're just trying to help you get there.
And hopefully have fun on the way.
Yeah. And also, you brought up something. There's two other things I want to bring up. I hope you don't mind me saying. I know. So number one, you said, do you want to buy a house as an opening line? Now, okay, so.
It's worth it.
No, that's exactly what I'm going to say.
You gotta say it with the facial expression.
Yeah. Well, I've literally been in prospecting sessions where we're on the phone talking to people we've never met before. And what works for me will not work for you. What works for you won't work for you. And there was this one agent that, the best thing that worked for her was, hey, do you want to sell your house? And that was it. And it worked for her, whereas other people, it's like, you've got to go around kind of the side door, so there's no one right way, but if you're not having success and results, then you got to figure out, what am I doing that's not working?
Would you say in your prospecting career and also how kind of your liaison, some
start the conversation, and then halfway through, you're like, how did I get here? Like how the
In a
person,
good way or?
yeah, in a good way, like how they completely flipped and using all the tech, objection handling and stuff like that. And to this day, so I do a lot of prospecting with them. So it just blows my mind
Yeah.
sometimes. I'm I'll leave these conversations off and be like, I want to be like, dude, why were you so mean in the beginning? I don't understand. You're like this great person, but so a lot of times I think it's just the situation. It's not you.
Oh, totally.
It blows my mind.
Totally. And that's why you want, like, if you get them to say no, or they sound like they're really mad. Hello, and you're like, hey, this is Jesse from PW Philly. What do you want? Hey, sounds like you're having a bad day. I can call that later, or whatever, just like, or like, if it's an expired listing, you're the 10th girl for that call today. Like, man, that's annoying. I can make that stop. How about I come over at 5 o'clock today? We discuss the sale of your house. Or for sale by owner, like, I will never work with a realtor again. What happened? Well, the last realtor I had, like, they did X, Y, Z. Oh, that sounds horrible. It does sound horrible, right? There's no reason to be like, oh, I'm sure they did their job right. Like, no, whatever happened, happened, So agreeing with people, making them right, because they're just feeling it and not taking it personally. I have a client right now that was referred to me by an agent who couldn't help her just because of other obligations. So we're at this meeting, it's an older lady, and I'm like, she hates me. Like, she really hates me. She's so mean. And then, like, at the end of the day, or at the end of the meeting, she's like, no, I really trust you. Oh, okay, you're not really showing it. And like, so I have to, like, every time she reacts harshly or says, I know you just want to sell this house for whatever you can sell it for. It's like, yeah, I get it. You're frustrated. We've had all these shows and no offers. And my experience, And so it's exactly what you're saying in terms of navigating this conversation. Having the mindset that this is not personal. Sometimes it can be personal, but understanding, like, I think people are overburdened today by communication technology, the speed of life, and we're often angry, especially when a stranger calls you or when you're in a tough situation like a sale of a home. So it's very easy to take out frustration on the salesperson or if the person's calling you and you did not ask them to call. So I just like to say, it's not me, like, I'm not taking it personally. You just got to grow with this.
It's a lot of skin thickening.
What is that? It's like road rage.
Yeah, like it's like, does anybody ever ride a bike in the city? Yeah, and does anybody drive a car in the city? Yeah, so when you're a biker, don't you just hate cars? And when you're a driver, you hate bikes, right? So I just try to think, like, that could be me on the bike, let me be really, courteous, and, when I'm walking, I'm like, come on, car, can you go any slower, or can you stop, please? And I'm like, that's probably me, the way I drive.
Honestly, what I get really mad about?
Yes, Jesse, tell us what you get.
We don't, Jesse, please tell us.
I've known Jesse for a year now.
I know, no.
It's something like it.
Jesse, would you
Yeah,
like
so
to?
it's not fair. What is it? When you're making a right, and like the other person said go, and you gotta go, and then this person wants to walk across the street so slow.
Yeah.
And they're looking straight at you like, I'm wrong for needing to go that way. What do you mean? Like, you don't have to rush, you don't have to skip and hop over the street, but like some little like,
Yeah.
Just
for politeness, like, look like you're rushing a little bit.
Just try.
Walk. That's true.
Like this.
So my best advice, as your elder, can I give you this advice? Is that you just gotta figure.
Keep your one, right?
What?
Keep your one. Feet.
Beat your one, don't lay on it.
No.
Seriously,
So they
is
can't-
that always figure everybody around you is doing their best with what they have. And I am just as bad a driver as that person. Like, are they gonna slow down? Are they gonna stop? Like, so, and I always try to imagine, like, anybody who does something crazy in their room, like, they're probably on their way to the hospital having anything. Like, a friend of mine used to say about the other drivers, like, oh, my friend, you are having a bad day. You shouldn't have done that thing that you just did. Pissed off. You know, so whatever you can do as a salesperson, it used to piss me off, but I'm used to it now. But like, we have to be the chameleon. Because we're the salespersons, we are here to help other people accomplish their goals, and if we want to get paid to do our job, we have to adapt to every circumstance, which brings us full circle. So, I know where you lost one check on, right? Yeah. It went with my dress, so I thought I'd. So yeah, so it's 6:58. So just review your packet and what we've discussed so far, and I'd love to hear some ahas or things that were, you know, impactful for you. And the rest of the slides can be seen on Stacey Loves Real Estate, my YouTube channel. But, oh, no. We're doing ahas. But thank you, Jesse. So, yeah.
What is a
Do you know what No, it's like,
Yeah, like a Eureka. Well, we're done with the PowerPoint anyway, so what was most impactful?
I think it was really cool. So I've been in here for a little while, so I know all about the objection code and stuff like that. It's cool to bring back, and kind of why I said, because you guys teach us stuff that was really cool, but the really practical report back is so crucial, it's so huge, it's so ridiculously simple, and it helps. It's just like, it helps with what forward prospecting is one of the things I love about this business.
Yeah.
Is if you just want to build rapport, like open house things, building rapport, I call it a warm up.
Yeah.
You said another sales job, like warm up. So whether you want to talk to them in the beginning, talk about why they're here, they're here to houses, you know, they probably came up fine. That's probably what I hear. Building more up, talking about something that's not real estate, coming back to the point.
Yeah.
Anything that will do to do that, and just kind of relax with it.
Yeah.
It's huge, and it's so hard. I amaze myself every day when I talk to people on the street.
Yeah.
Like, walking into a construction site, talking, and being like, okay, all right, hey, what's up, guys? What are you doing here? You know, talking like an asshole. You know what I mean? And then you're like, wow, I just got an appointment with a building that's probably going to produce $5 million worth of sales.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying a bad thing, but it's like, wow, all I did was just say talk.
Yes.
Just went up and talked.
It's
That's
people
it.
talking
It's
to people,
unreal.
that's all this business is.
And it's just rapport, man.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow.
It's like you probably made so many friends over your lifetime, you have family members you talk to every day, and suddenly you get in the sales position, you forget, it's just people talking to people.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's cool to bring it back.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna kind of retouch on that.
Cool. What other ahas? Are you bringing anything back to your car dealership?
Maybe.
Maybe?
I do like the objection thing.
Yeah.
Because like, we pick up the phone, we have the whole database, and we call up every single day, and they're like, here, call me, blah, 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 blah. So I do like that.
Yeah. So I like to think of, you know, the objection-only formula is just a structure of conversation so that you can move forward in the conversation. And it's, you know, so that's more like a quantitative part of the, you know, it's like more sciencey. And then what Teresa was talking about, like, these are the ways that you can really bring the warmth
Yeah, I
to
like
the
that.
conversation.
Like, when you're in car sales, we know they're not buying a car, but we still got to take through the whole process, so that I can relate when I need to really talk about.
Yeah, totally. And then, there's a great, there's an example in the Never Split the Difference book about a car salesman in the, I love it, it's the empathetic presumption, where you're basically like, oh, you're shopping for a new car today? Oh, no, I'm, you know, like, blah, blah, blah. And then you're assuming they're buying a new car because they're there, and then they can correct you, like you said.
Yeah.
What other ahas were there? Yeah.
Well, personally, this getting to say no
Yeah.
was interesting to me because I'm not used to that. But it's also interesting how, like I said, I'm a teacher, so a lot of this definitely intertwines with me teaching.
Yeah.
So I'm doing like the formula.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, I do that with my 7-year-old.
Yeah.
It's gonna be more of me doing that with adults now.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes you might do something naturally already, but now that you know why it works, you might be able to use it more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.